Hey everybody, Shoebox Legends here. Thanks for joining me today for another episode of Slab and Gab here on the channel where we take a look at some graded cards from my sports card collection and I gab about them a little bit. Have a pair today that came in and they both represent something that is very unusual for me in the hobby, and that is the graded 10. In this case, PSA 10 gem mint cards. I have probably the only times that I have referenced PSA 10 in the history of this channel is when I've talked about buying 9s to not pay the PSA 10 tax. I'm just not, I don't require gem mint graded cards, even for modern cards. A 9 is perfect for me. That's mint, and that's what I'm looking for. I never even knew there was gem mint before I got back into the hobby as an adult. But sometimes, or in a couple rare cases recently, the card that I wanted graded was just available in a 10, wasn't available in a 9, and more importantly, the 10 was so cheap that I didn't feel a need to wait it out for a 9, and I just went ahead and bought it. So let's just take a look at these. Both of these feature players that are in the top 5 in career points in the NHL. So we're talking about two hockey greats here. The first one is Mr. Hockey, Mr. Gordie Howe. This was purchased on 4 Sharp Corners, their website. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with them. They do a ton of sales on eBay, but they also have their own independent site where they offer a little bit better pricing because they don't have to pay the fees to eBay. So I do shop with them from time to time. They're actually right up the road from me in Mass, but I don't think they have any kind of a brick and mortar setup, so it's just online. But got this beautiful 20th anniversary parallel Gordie Howe, or not parallel, 20th anniversary insert, we'll call it. But it's sort of a parallel. Let's get into it here. So Upper Deck got into the hockey card game in 1990, and this was the design of that first ever set that they put out in 1990. So 20 years later, in 2010, they did a throwback set. These, I guess I would call these parallels because they do parallel the active player portion of the 2010 Upper Deck set. However, they also include some cards like this one, high number cards, 503, of, retired players who were not on that checklist. And Gordie Howe is, in some people's estimation, it's hard to argue against it, the greatest player ever to play the game. I think it's, if you want to argue Howe versus Gretzky, you could just talk all day long. But I thought it was really cool to be able to see someone who retired almost 10 years before that Upper Deck set came out, and to see what they would look like on that design. I just think it was a genius move by Upper Deck. I love this card. I love the photo they chose. Look at the gloves he's wearing here, like the brown leather gloves, no helmet. Just an awesome shot of Howe. And they did a great job, Upper Deck, with these parallels. Not only did they give us like a very proper front of the card, but when they broke onto the scene in, the late 80s in baseball and the early 90s in hockey, the card backs were what differentiated them as much as anything, because they gave you a second full color photo, and, they had these holograms for authentication. And so 20 years later, I give Upper Deck credit for doing a proper back for these as well. They really could have mailed it in. Topps or Panini probably would have, and just given us some plain text on the back or something. But Upper Deck stayed, whoops, I lost the stand there, stayed true to their original format and actually designed backs for these cards as well in that style, and even with the Upper Deck hologram, just like those original cards. So just super cool card. I have a bunch of these that I collected of active players in 2010, but I didn't really appreciate fully the throwback legends here like Gordie until recently, and was really shocked. If memory serves, got this on 4 Sharp Corners for about $35. And I'm not an expert or familiar with pricing, PSA 10s or anything like that. But I mean, I would have paid $30 for this card in a 9 if they had it. So to get that in a 10, it was just, not something I need, but couldn't really say no. And the second card is going to be very similar. I also got this from 4 Sharp Corners a little more recently. The Howe I've been sitting on for a couple months. This one just came in from the 2004 Upper Deck release. It is the Ron Francis Young Guns card. So what happened? Young Guns are the rookie card of choice in Upper Deck hockey every year. All of the high draft picks and top prospects from the draft the prior year get Young Guns card, and it is the rookie card that everybody wants. But what happened in 2004 is there was an NHL lockout. So Upper Deck obviously still wanted to create a set, but there wasn't a hockey season for really the first time ever, I think, that an entire season was missed. So how could they handle that? There weren't, legally, they weren't allowed to put the 2004 draft picks, most famously Alex Ovechkin, the number 1 overall pick, in the set because they hadn't played and they weren't going to play in 2004. So in order to get around that, Upper Deck did a set of veterans, and on the Young Guns portion of the checklist, they did retro Young Guns that feature retired players and stars, Hall of Famers, guys who had been out of the league and never got a Young Guns card because their rookies came, prior to 1990 when Upper Deck was making hockey cards. So I picked up the Ron Francis here, the greatest Hartford Whaler of all time. I love the photograph, the old school Whalers jerseys with, Pucky the whale patch on the shoulder. Just a great photograph here. And it's just cool. Even though this isn't a rookie, Francis, I think, was still in the league in 2004, but, he started 20, or, maybe he had just retired, but he started in the early 80s. So in no way should anyone be fooled into buying this, as a rookie card of a player. It's just kind of a gimmick that Upper Deck did in 2004 to deal with that lockout year. But I think they're kind of cool. It's, just like this Gordie Howe, and this is why I decided to group these together. Aside from the fact that they're both PSA 10s, which is abnormal for me, they're both, throwbacks or what would have been cards, looks at, some of the greats of the game who played, their best days before Upper Deck ever existed, and just kind of doing a parallel universe type thing, hypothetical, what might have been. So just a really nice job by Upper Deck. The back of this is true to a Young Guns card at the time, in the same way that this is true to a 90 Upper Deck card. So they did sometimes use the same photo, and the backs weren't quite as exciting as that inaugural Upper Deck release, but just a cool riff on, an alternate Ron Francis rookie, so to speak. And again, a PSA 10 that I was able to bring home, courtesy of 4 Sharp Corners for, well below $50. I think it was around $40. And so, yeah, I mean, my bias against 10s isn't that I hate 10s or anything like that. It's just that I prefer to buy 9s and stretch my hobby dollar a little bit further. But in these two cases, 10 was what was available, and 10 was reasonably priced. So there is a nice throwback modern Gordie Howe and a nice throwback modern Ron Francis today on Slab and Gab. We're going to wrap it up there. Keep this one under 10 minutes as I try to do. Truly appreciate you spending your valuable time here on my channel, and I'll certainly be back in the very near future with some more sports card content. Till then, take care and keep on enjoying the hobby, everybody.